from Baker Creek, and today I'm just going to give you a few tips on getting your seeds started in the spring. So these are some tips for indoor plant starting. You're getting excited about the gardening season, and so we're going to fire up our heat mats. We might use some overhead lighting, and we're going to get our seeds germinating. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the basics of how to figure out how to get started. So there are some essential supplies for getting your seeds started in the spring. You're going to, first and foremost, you're going to want to be planting your timing for your seeds. So using something like the Clyde's Garden Planner is a great way to figure out when your last frost date is, and then what time of year to plant your seeds, to start your seeds. So check out our Clyde's Garden Planner. You can also just go online and find your last frost date. Be sure to go on the Rare Seeds website and check out our growing guide, because that's going to tell you when to start all of your different garden crops. So there's a whole host of information available online, but step number one is to get your timing figured out. I also recommend keeping a journal or notebook so that you keep track of when you sowed everything. Also very important when keeping track is you're going to want to use plant labels. I can't tell you how many times I've regretted that I didn't label something. So we have the Bosmere plant labels that you can order on the website, or you can get creative sometimes using old, if you have leftover plastic forks that you don't want to see go to waste. But you're just going to want to label. I always put my name and my date as well. I do like the garden markers because they don't wash away as easily. You're going to want to get your trays together. If you're planning to reuse your trays from the previous season, just be sure to sterilize them with a mild bleach solution. You don't want to carry any pests, pathogens from the previous growing season. So just be sure to sterilize those trays before you reuse them, or get yourself some fresh trays this year. So you can, I like the small seed trays for things like peppers and eggplants and tomatoes, and then you're going to either bump them up into bigger pots like these 6-packs, or you can start directly in the 6-packs. It's your choice. So we've got a few different options for trays, and then your growing medium, your soil. Now, you do not want to just go dig up dirt from your garden. That is not appropriate for seed starting in trays. What you really need is a balanced medium that is a seed starting mix. Happy Frog sells some really great stuff. There's a lot of different brands that you can find, but it really needs to be a balanced mix that has some well-draining materials, and as well as some a bit of organic matter. So it has to be balanced. A good, well-balanced mix is essential. So you've got your tags, you've got your garden planner, trays, and soil. And I also recommend that if you're going to start things like peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, it's not essential, but it is quite helpful to use a heat mat, and that's basically going to heat your soil from below. So you can find heat mats online at a really reasonable price, and you just set the temperature. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment when we talk about solanaceous crops. So maybe consider investing in a heat mat. You also may try overhead lights. That's another option. But what is absolutely essential is your trays, your soil, your labels, and just a bit of organization materials, whatever you use. So first things first, you're going to want to choose your varieties. And it may seem simple, but you want to pick things that appeal to you, obviously, something that you're going to enjoy growing, and above and beyond you're going to enjoy eating. But also it is nice when you can choose crops that are well suited to your climate or your growing conditions or needs. So say you have a small garden, you want to grow some miniature varieties, you can try things like Tom Thumb peas. Or say you're growing in hot, humid Florida, you're going to maybe try some varieties that we have from Thailand, or some that were developed in Florida, things that are well suited to your location. So use the Whole Seed catalog or your Rare Seeds catalog. This is a wealth of information. We have tons of information, especially about where these varieties hail from. And that's going to help you make a better decision on what is going to grow best in your area. And you can also use our growing guide on rareseeds.com. That will also help. As well as the descriptions on our website are full of helpful information as to where these varieties come from. When you're doing your research, also we have these really handy growing guides on growing charts on the back of our seed packets, so you can use those to help determine when you're going to plant and how you're going to plant. So this is all part of the planning process. And there's lots of other seed, companies to check out, and check out the whole seed catalog or the rare seed catalog. So one of the first crops we're starting in the spring are our solanaceous crops, our sun-loving crops. And those are things like tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. And here we've got some peppers that have actually already sprouted and popped. And there aren't too many secrets to getting them to germinate and grow. Solanaceous crops, the real trick is just to remember that they love warm weather, they love the sun. So I really like to use a heat mat to encourage a warmer soil surface, and that's going to help germinate the peppers and eggplants and tomatoes. They're less concerned, the plants are less concerned about the warm air temperature as they are about their soil temperature. So give them a heat mat and turn that heat mat up to 80, 85 degrees, and that's going to help germinate your peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes much faster. Aside from providing enough heat, they're fairly easy to grow. And you don't want to plant them maybe more than an 1/8 inch deep when you plant them. You don't want to allow the plants to become pot bound. So you're going to, once they outgrow their small cells, you're going to carefully put them into a bigger pot until they're ready to go outside. And what is so essential with the solanaceous crops is to make sure that you don't set them out into the garden until well past last frost date. So make sure that your soil is warmed and that you're not in danger of any more frost. When starting your seeds inside, especially crops like your solanaceous crops, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, it's essential to provide enough sunlight. So if you have a really good sunny south or east facing window, that's huge. That can be enough to germinate and start your plants. Or you could use supplemental lighting. You can find overhead lights, growing lights that are fairly inexpensive. You can use LEDs, compact fluorescents. LEDs are probably best. And you want some LEDs that are intended for growing, ones that are more on the blue spectrum so that they're better for vegetative growth rather than fruiting. So that's going to be about 5,000 kelvins would be ideal. So look out for LED lights, compact fluorescents, or just a really good sunny window if you have it. So whether you're starting your seeds in your home, in a window, or in a greenhouse, you are going to want to make sure that the temperature, the ambient temperature, doesn't drop very low, because the plants do want to be warm. You're kind of tricking them into thinking it's spring. So keep the temperature in the area that you're growing anywhere between 70 and 90. And if you're growing things like super hot peppers, you're going to want to keep it in the 90s. It's going to want to be quite warm where you're starting them. Humidity domes can also help to warm your plants and keep them a bit protected, but it's essential that you have a warm environment and a warm soil substrate for germination. Then we have crops like brassicas. Those are anything in the cabbage family. So you've got things like this purple bok choy, but then we also have crops like Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, and those are going to need a longer start period. So you're going to want to go crop by crop and just do a quick bit of research, whether it's checking the back of your seed packet like here, or going on to the growing guide online, or checking out the almanac reference, whatever you're going to use. But some crops like cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, they're going to need 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date. That's when you're going to start them indoors. All brassicas do not want to be very hot. 60 to 65 is a great temperature for germination and for keeping the plants. So you don't need to provide a ton of heat to get your brassicas started, but you do want to start them early, especially if you live somewhere where you get a hot summer, because they're going to suffer when the summer heat really turns on. So getting them started early is really huge. Then you also have some shorter season brassicas like kale and pak choy, and you can start those as short as just 4 weeks before your last frost date. So there's quite a range when you're starting brassicas, and it really depends on how long the plant takes to maturity. So just do a bit of research on how long the days to maturity are, and then find out your last frost date, do a bit of counting back, mark your calendar, and provide about 60 to 65 degrees for these crops. And you're going to be setting them out in early to mid-spring. So no matter what you're growing, whether they love cool weather, whether they love warm weather, just be sure to try and aim to provide the ideal temperature. But if you don't, that's really okay. In this greenhouse here, we are ranging between 60 degrees at night and in the 90s during the day, and the brassicas are growing great just alongside the solanaceous crops, alongside the Swiss chard and beets. So just be sure to aim to get a good temperature in your area, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So whether you have a sunroom with great natural sunlight, or you're going to provide some LED or compact fluorescent lights, it's aside from just being able to start your seeds, you're also going to be able to produce beautiful things like flowers in the winter. So in our greenhouse here, we've just got a few overhead lights. These are LEDs, and we've got ranunculus, we've got beautiful asters, we're getting chili peppers, we've got amaryllis, pansies, geraniums. We've got a little bit of everything here. We're even growing tomatoes, and we're getting beautiful red ripe tomatoes in the middle of winter. So like I said, whether you prefer to use natural sunlight or LEDs, some kind of overhead light, you can have a really successful growing season even over the winter. And if you want to grow over the winter, it's ideal to choose varieties that are small and compact so that they don't take up a lot of space in your limited area. So things like the mini bell tomato, or even the micro tom tomato, extra short, not 6 inches tall and producing tons of flowers and fruit, those are ideal choices. So in watering your plants, you just want to make sure and use a gentle watering head. You don't want to blast the seeds out of the tray by accident. You want something that's a little bit more gentle. So a very fine mister is ideal, something like that. And just be sure to always put your fingers in the soil or pick up your trays to really assess how wet the trays are. You want to strike a balance between not overwatering but not underwatering. The best way to tell is really to touch the soil and figure out for yourself. So be sure to keep an eye on watering and don't water too hard. Overhead lights are excellent to get you a jump on the season. If you're a little bit late and to starting seeds for the season and you want to get a catch up, try the overhead lights. They're excellent. Just be sure not to overdo it. You can get too much of a jump on your season and your plants can be overgrown. So don't trick your plants too much. Don't overdo it with your lights. And you should have a great season. So be sure to get yourself a whole seed catalog on the Rare Seeds website. You're going to find all your information that you'd ever want to know about heirlooms in this catalog. You can also get the definitive guide to heirloom gardening with the Heirloom Life Gardener. That's also on the Rare Seeds website. This is an excellent resource. It's going to give you tons of growing tips as well as cooking tips, which I love, and lots of history. You can also find the whole seed catalog. You can find it online on our website, rareseeds.com, but it's also available in newsstands. And if you're looking for other horticulture resources, just be sure to check out your local bookstore and find some great horticulture resources. Thanks for joining us today and learning with us, and we hope that you have an excellent spring starting your seeds.